December 2023. A Chevrolet dealership in Watsonville, California, deployed a GPT wrapper as its customer service portal. Within days, a user prompt injected the model into agreeing to sell a $76,000 Tahoe for $1. The model had no constraint connecting it to the dealership's pricing database. The offer was real. The architecture had no floor. That failure is not an edge case. A Stanford study on AI-driven procurement found that these systems favor larger, legacy suppliers over smaller and minority-owned businesses by 3.5 to 1, not because of intent, but because stochastic models cannot distinguish merit from historical volume. Meanwhile, only 23% of logistics AI systems provide any decision explainability. The wrapper era has produced aesthetic intelligence, systems that look capable but cannot verify their own outputs. The mechanism of failure is called the representation bias trap. Procurement AI trained on historical data learns to equate high transaction volume with supplier reliability. A smaller or minority-owned firm with less historical contract data receives a lower score. It loses the contract. It generates no new data for the model, and the Tier 1 supplier grows more dominant in the training set, compounding the bias on the next cycle. No signal breaks the loop. The same dynamic plays out in logistics. Without a causal trace between an AI recommendation and the operational data behind it, 73% of supply chain failures caused by incomplete data visibility remain invisible until they cascade. Veriprajna's architecture for this problem has three interlocking layers. The first is Citation-Enforced GraphRAG. The neural engine proposes a response. Before that response reaches the operator, a symbolic validator queries a private knowledge graph, the enterprise's structured record of contracts, statutes, and carrier performance. Every proposed token is checked against this graph. If the neural layer attempts to output a supplier score that has no evidentiary basis in the contract record, the validator intercepts the token stream and forces the model back to grounded output. This is not prompt engineering. The constraint is architectural. The second layer is constrained decoding. Instead of generating free-form text, the model's output is mathematically restricted to a domain-specific ontology, a fairness constitution encoded as a JSON schema. The decoder cannot physically generate a supplier score that violates the anti-discrimination logic embedded in the schema. There is no jailbreak for a mathematical constraint on the output tensor. The third layer is the structural causal model. Traditional procurement AI asks, who was contracted before? The causal model asks a different question. What if historical volume equals 0? This counterfactual inference collapses the 3.5 to 1 ratio to a 1-to-1 meritocratic baseline, not by adding a fairness score on top of a biased model, but by removing the confound from the causal graph itself. The benchmarks are measurable. Citation-Enforced GraphRAG achieves 100% precision in structured data extraction, compared to 63 to 95% for standalone GPT-4. Hallucination rates in grounded outputs fall from 1.5 to 6.4% to below 0.1%. In industrial operations, the same architecture deployed at the edge reduces inference latency from 800 milliseconds, the floor for cloud-based inspection, to 12 milliseconds, the safety threshold for a conveyor belt moving at 2 meters per second. A 98.5% improvement. In media publishing, the cost of skipping this architecture was concrete. The Sports Illustrated and Arena Group collapse in November 2023 produced a 27% single-day stock decline after AI-generated content published under fake bylines was discovered. The wrapper had no verification layer. It had no authorship graph. The market priced the failure in hours. The 2026 window is narrow. Procurement and supply chain leaders who move to deterministic AI architecture this year hold a 12 to 18-month competitive advantage before causal modeling and GraphRAG become standard enterprise infrastructure. After that window closes, the cost of the 3.5 to 1 bias is not an advantage to surrender. It is an ESG liability to settle. The choice for operations leadership is not between innovation and caution. It is between building a verifiable audit trail now or defending the absence of one in a regulatory proceeding later. Veriprajna, from the Latin root for truth and the Sanskrit for wisdom. We build the architectures that cannot fail. Read the 12-page brief. Approximately 16 minutes. The deterministic imperative is documented.